Hello, hello, it's me, Janette. How are you? Hope you've been well. Hope your week is off to a great start. In today's video, I wanted to share a tag flip that I am working on, a little tag flip book. So this is going to consist of lots of tags that I'm going to layer and embellish and decorate, and it's going to just be a nice little flip book for me. So really excited. I love tags and doing like embellished tags. And I wanted to do, for this video specifically, I wanted to just layer upon layer, like just do loads of layering on a single tag. I've been really inspired by my pal, my comadre, Ara from The Paper Treasury, and I will have her YouTube channel linked below. She's really talented, really great at layering and just doing some really like just chunky, ultra super layered action. So really fun. And so I wanted to, I've done like tag flips before, but I just wanted to do something that was just extra, just extra. Now, this past weekend, I was binging on The Crown on Netflix. And so when I usually like binge on shows, I like to be productive and do something else at the same time. So I was doing some die cutting, and this is kind of almost like mindless almost. You don't really need to think too much about it or do too much prep work. I just grabbed a bunch of little dies in my stash and just started die cutting scraps that I had, as well as like some papers that I've been wanting to have a play with. So I die cut a bunch of tags, which is what you see here, and a lot of little frames, which you see there, my little black and white frame that is from one of my Sizzix dies. And a lot of my dies are from Sizzix because that's where I used to work when I lived in the States. Absolutely loved that job. Loved my coworkers. My bosses were amazing, and it was just a great time. And anyway, miss them all every day. Now for my tag layering, I'm starting off with the largest layers first. So the first layer was a Vellum doily die cut, and then I moved on to my frame, and then I have this gorgeous hot pink flower die cut from one of the, which I think you saw in the last video, or maybe it was this past weekend, but I'm sure you've seen this these flowers before. And so again, starting off with the largest elements and just working my way down. And I'm sticking to the colors of the base tag, so I'm going to use some hot pinks, blacks, whites, and also some just like lighter pinks and like light blues, which I think will pair well with everything else on my tag. Now, a lot of the pieces that I'm using aren't complete die cuts, like this very intricate little black die cut that I have there. That's just half of the die. I didn't end up cutting, well, I don't have a lot of black cardstock left, so I had a little piece, and so I just cut half of the die. So you don't have to use complete pieces of die cuts or layers for, especially when you're doing lots of layering like this. The little black sprig at the top, that again is only like one, not even a quarter of the full die cut. So you can definitely incorporate your scraps into something like this. Use up those scraps in your stash, which you know that I do, and also encourage others to do as well. Now lately I've been really appreciative and gravitating towards all of the smaller dies in my stash. I usually, I tended to gravitate towards larger dies and die cuts, but don't discount those itty bitty dies in your stash. I think they're great for tags, for journaling layouts, for planners, for pocket mail. And yeah, it's just something, don't overlook those little dies. I know I passed on so many just smaller dies, and I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have discounted those itty bitty dies. They're great. Now I wanted to share my thoughts, a little bit about my thoughts on layering. Now I have a love-hate relationship with layering, because a lot of the times when you are adding, your different elements, your ephemera, your die cuts, maybe you're adding some twine, But especially with ephemera, you end up covering what's underneath. So that gorgeous like fuchsia hot pink floral die cut that I had, like I had to cover that up to get this effect. And it's like, I can only see about 2% of the ephemera, the die cut. And it just makes me a little bit sad, a little bit angry, because it's like, why can't, why do we have to, but I don't know, just random thoughts, because with any kind of layering, especially when you're doing some kind of collage, you end up covering so much. This is especially true in mixed media. If you've ever tried mixed media, you just end up putting layers upon layers, and you just think like, why did I just use all these materials, these papers or like stamps, and I just ended up covering it at the end. It just kind of is counterintuitive, but it is super fun. I love layering so much. Especially love collaging. That is my jam. Now it's time to glue everything together, now that I kind of know what position I want all of my elements in. So I'm going to be using Cosmic Shimmer Dries, I'm going to be using Cosmic Shimmer Dries Clear Glue, which is my favorite liquid adhesive, and I'm also going to use some foam tape. Now, I really recommend, especially when you're trying to get these kind of bulky layered tags or layered tag flip books, or just you want something to be really layered, I do recommend using a lot of foam tape. Usually with card making, you end up only using foam tape maybe for like 1 or 2 layers, but for this one I am using foam tape for about, I want to say 50% of the layers that I'm adding. I'm going to add some foam tape, so that's going to give it lots of dimension. It's going to be a really bulky tag, but I think it just makes it gives it a better effect, a more dimensional effect to my tag. Now, a tip for effective layering is that, yes, okay, you are adding lots of different layers upon layers to, let's say, for example, this tag, but you want to be mindful about not covering up the layer underneath completely with whatever you're adding on top. So you want to make sure that it's always somehow visible, at least, even if it's just a little bit, like that fuchsia die cut, even if it's just, I can only see 2% of it, that is better than not seeing any of it. So make sure, maybe you might have to offset your next layer just a little bit so that it's always peeking through, so you can always see every single layer. Even though you do cover up 90% of the particular element, the particular die cut, make sure that you can always see it, even if you cover it up with the next layer. So just offset it. Maybe you have to angle it just a smidge. That's just something that is very helpful to do. Also, I recommend if you're doing some kind of layering like this, just chunky layering, to use vellum. So cut your dies from some vellum, and it's so easy to add, just like, for example, that little floral die cut there, cut from vellum. It was just so easy to incorporate into the design. It gives it just a bit of, like a little bit of soft texture, but it's also very effective because it doesn't really cover up what's underneath. So I hope that that makes sense. Also, I recommend to make sure that your layers are different sizes, because this really just promotes like eye movement. So if you have something little, like a little tiny die cut at the top, that's gonna really stand out, especially if you don't have anything else that size. So make sure all your layers are different sizes. I think this way it's just more eye-catching. So another tip for you. Also, when you're adding your adhesive to your different layers, don't saturate your element with adhesive. So if you're using liquid adhesive, don't cover up the whole backside with glue. What I recommend is just adding a little bit to the center, and then this way you can slide any additional elements, any additional die cuts, just right underneath or behind it, kind of test out the placement. Because if you, like, let's say I had glued every single element to the nth degree, I wouldn't be able to test out just these additional little die cuts that I'm testing out right now, auditioning, as Helen Griffin says, auditioning her elements. I love that phrase. So you can always go back and add some more adhesive. So when you're first, gluing everything together, just put a little bit of adhesive in the center. Only use, one foam dot in the center. You can always go back and add more, and this just gives you more like flexibility for adding different layers. And that's the end of this tag flip actually, because there's more to come, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see more of my crafty projects, then you can head to my Instagram account, which is Janette Lane Blog, or you can subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and take good care. I'll see you soon.